So we are now going to continue without any wastage of time. So the idea is the same question. Again, I have highlighted the important key points that you need to keep in mind when answering this question. So this is basically the introduction of the candidate. This is the body paragraph. Please note that this is not my sample answer, and all the rights reserves goes to the HKEAA. So in the introductory paragraph, we can see that there's a lot of definition of key terms such as desire and negative force, and it's very clearly written, which I have highlighted in red. At the same time, the candidate has made a successful attempt in trying to hint all the different key points in the introduction, and at the same time we can see that he or she has given a lot of contextual information. So although the introduction itself is quite short, and later on you'll see that it's shorter than the one of the level 4s, it still has a good concise introduction because it mentions all the points and definitions. Make sure that your points are in chronological order. So for example, if I begin with the idea of let's say Scotty's obsession and blindness to reality, I'm going to make sure that my first paragraph is actually talking about this. And if the second paragraph is about male gaze and misogynist mindset, I'm going to make sure that that is really the second paragraph or the second section of my essay. Now, the idea of writing points, which is in your body paragraph, you need to make sure that you're trying to explain it as much as possible. However, I do not mean that you're trying to go over the top and somehow losing your way. But it is always obviously a good idea to explain as much as you can. Now, if you're familiar with your liberal studies subject, which is also in the HKDSE syllabus, if you are studying the 2022 or 2023 syllabus, you'd be able to see that it's very important to explain your point. So you can take in the same approach as you would take with your LS paper. However, for this specific literature and English paper, you need to make sure that you're somehow showing your analytical skills, trying to show off your knowledge on the background contextual information, and also giving in lots of different examples. Again, for like the how type question, you need camera movements and film technique keywords. You would be able to find them in my literature and English notes. So if you'd like to see how my English literature notes looks like, feel free to hop onto my previous video, and you'd be able to see a link on top of this video right now where it mentions a sneak peek to this video, a sneak peek to my notes, apologies. So in the conclusion, it's very important that you somehow summarize your points, and this is really the time where you can introduce other new points. Now usually lots of different tutors who are teaching the literature and English subject, they would highly suggest you not to include new points. However, I want to emphasize that it is a very good idea to include new points. So let's imagine that you only have 2 minutes left and you don't have time for another body paragraph because you need to complete your conclusion. So you're confused between doing a body paragraph or a conclusion. I want to highlight that it is better to go on by doing a conclusion rather than a body paragraph, because a conclusion is as much important as your introduction paragraph, and it is something that you cannot ignore. You cannot end your conclusion with just one sentence saying that, therefore, I believe that desire is presented as a negative force. You cannot do this because this is a literature and English essay, and it's important to summarize your points. Just imagine this to be your English paper where you need to make sure that you have proper sort of structure of your essay. So moving on, as you can see, this is a further explanation on level 5, the level 5 paper. So you can see the gray parts are basically the different points that I have highlighted, and the yellow ones are generally are the points. So the gray ones are the explanation evidence and the yellow ones are the points. So for example, you can see in the first paragraph, the candidate has written that Scotty has a desire. Gavin Elster has a desire for money, freedom, and power, which is motivated by the murder of his wife and the fictional character of Carlotta. Now, in the first sentence, which is the topic sentence, we already have an idea that the candidate is going to speak about Gavin Elster, and she might possibly talk about Scotty's desire to obtain Madeline. Now, this is a possible idea that a marker can already get. And you can see that she has included the color red. So this is linking to the idea of how. So the candidate has successfully understood how to approach this question. And the further explanation of the color red is given below right here. So red is generally the idea of passion, love, but also signifies danger. So in this part, you'd be able to see that the quotes and also the idea of the color is used, but I want to emphasize that it is very important that when you're including a quote or a idea of a color, you have to make sure that it includes to the point, because later on you'll see how a level 4 exemplar does not really answer the question to the point, which causes it to lose a lot of different marks, and you'll see why really soon. So here you can see there's further explanation, the fact that there's the mise en scene and the frames, the idea of fiction and the idea of perception of events. Now you can pause this video for about 2 minutes and have a read through this exemplar, and then come back to the video to see my explanation on why this is a level 5 exemplar. Now again, although I didn't highlight it with the color gray, you can notice that there is a quote used over here. Now the quote is very effectively answering to the point, which is why the marker was probably impressed about the candidate's knowledge. Now, as I've predicted earlier, she or he has mentioned the idea of Scotty's desire to understand the truth. And there is also a good usage of quotes. Now, one important idea of quote is that it's not necessary to memorize it word for word. As long as you have the basic and the main idea of the quote, that should be more than enough. And also you'd be able to see there is again lots of different points and lots of different explanation, which I've highlighted with the color gray. So notice that again there is the use of symbols. So the idea of the grey suit and the fact that Madeline has used a swirl bun, which highlights vertigo. So I want to highlight some of the things that the candidate has done well and some of the things the candidate could improve. So before moving on to the slide, I just wanted to give my personal opinions. Now, I really appreciate the fact that the candidate has a very good and strong definition of the word desire, and at the same time, as I've mentioned earlier, there's lots of different points that the candidate has already mentioned in the introduction. Also, it gives lots of different examples. For example, Mrid's desire for Scotty, Gavin Elster's desire for money making, which can be seen over here, Scotty's desire to see the truth, and Judy's desire to basically gain the idea of money. So I think overall the candidate has a very good understanding of the idea on how to structure an essay in a very systematic manner. Although I've just included only 3 different pages of the candidate's answer, you'd be able to see the entire script of the essay in the HKEAA website, and I will include the screenshots of all these exemplars in this video below. Now, I do believe that although this is a level 5 exemplar essay, there is certainly a lot of different problems that I want to highlight. For example, I personally believe that the candidate did not fully flesh out the importance of the color. Now, if you've probably realized, the candidate uses the color green. uses the color red as well in the second paragraph, but it doesn't really emphasize how does the color red show the idea of love and danger. Although this is quite self-explanatory, but as I've said, you have to imagine the marker do not know anything. So you need to explain why is red presented as something that's dangerous. Now you could, for example, let's imagine I myself being a candidate in 2021, I could say, okay, so the color red showcases the idea of passion because of its high contrast lighting key, and it itself is a very heartwarming color which could showcase the idea of love. However, at the same time, since the color itself is very bright and it creates a very alert kind of feeling, it presents a sort of warning and could foreshadow the idea of danger. So you can see with these few lines, including a lot of key terms in the lines, it kind of showcases how you have good background knowledge on the color, and it highlights that you have a good understanding and a grasp of different colors and also its significance. Also, I think that there was a lot of different key terms that the candidate has used. For example, over here, you would see here. So there is male gaze, there's the idea of acrophobia, and also the idea of voyeurism, and also the idea of the misogynist mindset. I remember that was in paragraph 1. So there's lots of different key terms, but I don't think there is a very visible link to the question. Although it does show off that the candidate has a lot of knowledge on different key terms, it doesn't link to the question on how it presents desire as a negative force. So these are basically my my views on the essay of the level 5, and I have summarized my opinions basically in this slide, and I really hope that it helps you to take a moment to see if you felt about this as well. So the two things that you can possibly gain from this lesson is, number one, be as direct as you can possibly be. So make sure that your points are extremely conceptualized and you have strong explanation with evidence to make sure that you have answered the question successfully. Number two is always respect the question words. You need to realize, is the question asking you about the question word how, or is it tackling with the idea of what? So that's very important to make sure that you are answering the question and not going off the track. Now, in my next video, you would see me going through the level 4 exemplars with very basic analyzation of the exemplars. So feel free to move on to the next video to look for the level 4 exemplars. Now, although you're not aiming for the level 4 exemplars, it is always a good idea to have a look at them to make sure that you are going towards the right goal and to see if your essays are truly of the level 4 standards. And if you're aiming for level 5, it's also good to see level 4 exemplars, because sometimes your essays are actually of the level 4 level, but you may not realize this. And I do think it's a good idea to go through both to make sure that you can see the differences clearly. So before I end this video, I would like all of you to quickly hop onto my previous video on the HKDSE syllabus overview if you haven't, because it's always a good idea from time to time to go through the syllabus and make sure that you are going on track. Till then, see you on my next video, and yeah.